The cream-colored invitation sat on Alexander Whitmore's mahogany desk like a beautiful, expensive insult. Embossed gold lettering announced the union of Victoria Pemberton and Charles Huntington III in what would undoubtedly be Manhattan's wedding of the year. Alex traced his finger over the elegant script, wondering if Victoria had personally overseen the guest list, or if some wedding planner had the delicious irony of inviting the bride's former fiancé. "Mr. Whitmore?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your 4 o'clock is here." Alex glanced at his Rolex, 3:58. Punctuality was something he appreciated, especially in childcare. "Send her in, Margaret." The office door opened, and Emma Chen walked in with the kind of confidence that made Alex look up from his computer screen. At 28, she carried herself with an easy grace that seemed at odds with her profession. Most nannies he'd interviewed over the past month had either been overwhelmingly sweet or intimidatingly stern. Emma was neither. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, her smile genuine, but not overeager. "Thank you for seeing me. Please sit." Alex gestured to the leather chair across from his desk. He'd learned to read people quickly in business, and something about Emma's presence was unexpected. She wore a navy blazer over dark jeans, professional but not trying too hard. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup, pretty but not in the polished way of the women in his usual circles. "I've reviewed your resume," Alex began, picking up the single sheet of paper. 4 years with the Morrison family in Boston, excellent references, early childhood education degree from NYU. What brings you to New York? Emma settled into the chair, crossing her legs. "Fresh start, mainly. The Morrison children grew up. Their youngest just started high school. I love what I do, but I was ready for a new challenge. And my daughter would be that challenge." A smile tugged at Emma's lips. "All children are challenges, Mr. Whitmore. The question is whether they're worth it." Alex found himself leaning forward slightly. Most candidates spent their interviews telling him how wonderful children were, how much they loved working with families. Emma's directness was refreshing. "Sophia is 8, he said. "She's spirited. My ex-wife and I divorced 2 years ago, and she's been through 4 nannies since then." 4 nannies in 2 years? Emma raised an eyebrow. "That's either very bad luck or a very particular child." "Probably both." Alex couldn't help but smile. "She's incredibly bright, which means she's also incredibly good at finding weak spots. The last nanny quit after Sophia convinced her that I'd given permission for a shopping trip to FAO Schwartz. The bill was significant." Emma laughed, a genuine sound that filled the sterile office space. "Creative problem-solving. I can respect that. You're not concerned. Should I be? Every child acts out for a reason. Usually, they're testing boundaries or processing emotions they don't have words for yet." Emma leaned forward slightly. 8-year-olds who've been through their parents' divorce and multiple caregiver changes. They're probably feeling pretty powerless. Acting out is often the only control they feel they have." Alex studied her face. In 34 years, he'd become an expert at detecting when people were telling him what they thought he wanted to hear. Emma wasn't doing that. She was being honest, even if it wasn't necessarily what a potential employer wanted to hear. "The position would be live-in," he said. "The apartment has a separate wing with its own entrance, but you'd essentially be on call 24/7 when Sophia's with me. I travel frequently for business, and my custody arrangement with my ex-wife is complicated." "Complicated how?" Alex hesitated. He wasn't used to discussing personal details with employees, but something about Emma's directness made him want to match it. "Victoria, my ex-wife, is getting remarried next month. She's been pushing for changes to our custody agreement. More time with Sophia, fewer disruptions to what she calls family life." "And how does Sophia feel about that?" The question caught Alex off guard. We haven't discussed it in detail." Emma nodded thoughtfully. 8-year-olds are more aware than adults give them credit for. She probably has strong feelings about her mother's wedding, her new stepfather, where she fits in all of it. You think that's why she's been difficult with the nannies? I think she's been testing whether the people caring for her are going to stick around. When your world keeps changing, you either adapt or you try to control what you can. Emma paused. The shopping trip to FAO Schwarz, was she trying to get the nanny in trouble, or was she trying to see if someone would finally set a firm boundary? Alex stared at her. He'd been so frustrated with Sophia's behavior lately, so focused on finding someone who could manage her, that he hadn't considered what she might actually need. "The salary we discussed on the phone," he said, shifting back to safer territory. "Is that acceptable?" "It's generous, almost suspiciously so." Emma tilted her head. "What aren't you telling me about this job?" Alex felt his shoulders tense. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Mr. Whitmore, I've been a nanny for 6 years. I know what the going rate is, even in Manhattan. You're offering about 30% above market rate for what seems like a fairly standard position. Either you're terrible at market research, or there's something about this job that justifies hazard pay." Despite himself, Alex laughed. "You're very direct. It saves time. So?" Alex stood and walked to the window overlooking Central Park. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the reservoir, and joggers made their predictable loops around the familiar path. Everything in his life used to be that predictable. "My ex-wife's wedding is in 3 weeks," he said without turning around. "I received an invitation. Are you planning to attend?" I wasn't, but Sophia mentioned that she's the flower girl, and she's nervous about it. She asked if I'd be there. Emma was quiet for a moment, "And you'd need someone to help navigate that situation." "Among other things." Alex turned back to face her. "Victoria's new husband is Charles Huntington. His family owns Huntington Media Group." Emma's expression didn't change, but Alex caught the slight widening of her eyes. Everyone in New York knew the Huntington name. "They're having the wedding at the plaza," Alex continued. 300 guests, society pages, the works. Victoria always loved a spectacle. And you'd be attending as Sophia's father. Nothing more. Alex returned to his desk, suddenly feeling the weight of the situation. "But these people, they'll be watching every move, analyzing every interaction, looking for signs that I'm not handling the divorce well, that I'm still hung up on Victoria, that I'm somehow a threat to their perfect narrative." Emma leaned back in her chair, processing. "You need someone who can help you navigate a high-society wedding where your ex-wife is the bride, your daughter is in the wedding party, and you're essentially on display for 300 of New York's most influential people." "When you put it like that, it sounds terrifying," Emma finished, "also explaining the hazard pay." Alex found himself smiling again. "So you understand why I've had trouble keeping nannies. Actually, I'm starting to understand why Sophia has been acting out." Emma stood up. "Mr. Whitmore, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "When was the last time you did something just for fun, not for business, not because it was expected, just because it made you happy?" The question hung in the air. Alex tried to remember the last time he'd laughed, really laughed, outside of a business dinner or social obligation. The last time he'd done something spontaneous, something that wasn't scheduled in his calendar, or designed to advance his career or maintain his reputation. "I can't remember," he admitted. Emma nodded as if she'd expected that answer. "Your daughter is 8 years old. Her world is changing. Her parents are focused on adult complications, and everyone around her is probably walking on eggshells, trying to manage appearances and emotions. She doesn't need another person who's going to treat her like a problem to be solved. What does she need? Someone who remembers what it's like to have fun. Someone who can help her feel like a kid instead of a pawn in an adult chess game." Emma picked up her purse. "I'll take the job, Mr. Whitmore, but I have conditions." Alex raised an eyebrow. "Conditions? First, when Sophia's with you, family time means family time. No business calls during dinner, no emails during homework, no meetings during weekend activities unless it's a genuine emergency. That's challenging given my schedule. Second, We're going to figure out how to make that wedding fun for Sophia, not just survivable for you. She's going to remember this day for the rest of her life. It should be a good memory. Alex felt something shift in his chest, uncertainty mixed with something that might have been hope. And the third condition. Emma headed toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. You're going to trust me to do my job, even when my methods seem unconventional, especially when they seem unconventional. After she left, Alex sat in his office as the sun set over Manhattan, staring at the wedding invitation. For the first time since receiving it, he felt something other than dread. He felt curious. 3 days later, Emma moved into the guest wing of Alex's Upper East Side penthouse. Sophia, who had been suspicious and sullen with her previous nannies, seemed cautiously intrigued by the new addition to their household. You don't look like a nanny, Sophia announced at breakfast on Emma's first morning. Emma, who was making pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, glanced over her shoulder. What do nannies look like? Old, boring. They wear ugly sweaters and try to make me eat vegetables. I see. Emma flipped a particularly impressive stegosaurus. Well, I do plan to make you eat vegetables, but I also plan to teach you how to make ice cream sundaes for dinner sometimes. Sophia perked up. Really? Really? But only after we've had vegetables for lunch. Alex, watching this exchange from behind his newspaper, felt another unfamiliar flutter of something like relief. Emma had been in their home for less than 24 hours, and already the dynamic felt different. Lighter, somehow. Dad, Sophia said, turning her attention to Alex. Emma says you used to be fun before you became so serious about work. Alex looked at Emma, who shrugged innocently. I may have mentioned that all adults were kids once. Were you really fun, Dad? Alex thought about his college years, his early 20s when he'd been building his company from nothing. He'd been driven, ambitious, but there had been joy in it then, a sense of adventure. I used to be, he said quietly. Emma says we should practice being fun before Mommy's wedding, Sophia continued, so I won't be nervous. Practice being fun. Emma set a plate of dinosaur pancakes in front of Sophia. I thought we could do a few trial runs. Practice being comfortable in fancy situations, but in a way that's actually enjoyable. Like what? Well, Emma said, sitting down with her own plate. I was thinking we could start with something low-key. Maybe dinner at a nice restaurant where Sophia can practice her fancy manners, but somewhere that won't feel stuffy or intimidating. Alex found himself nodding. That could work. And then maybe we could try something a little more adventurous, a museum gala or a charity auction. Something where Sophia can see that formal events can actually be fun if you approach them right. But the wedding is in 2.5 weeks. Emma smiled. Then we'd better get started. That evening, as Alex reviewed contracts in his study, he could hear Emma and Sophia in the living room, apparently practicing fancy conversation. Their laughter drifted down the hallway, punctuated by Sophia's exaggerated attempts at a British accent. No, Emma was saying. You don't have to sound like the Queen. Just speak clearly and remember to ask people questions about themselves. Like what? Like, how do you know the bride? Or, what's your favorite thing about weddings? More laughter. Alex realized he was smiling as he worked, something that hadn't happened in months. Later that night, after Sophia was in bed, Emma knocked on his study door. Come in. She entered carrying 2 cups of tea, offering one to Alex. How are you doing with all this? Alex accepted the tea gratefully. Honestly, I'm not sure. Part of me thinks I'm crazy for going to this wedding at all. And the other part? The other part thinks Sophia needs to see that her parents can be in the same room without the world ending. Alex took a sip of tea. It was chamomile. Soothing. She's been so worried about everything lately. About the wedding, about where she'll live, about whether people will still like her if her family is complicated. Emma settled into the chair across from his desk. Families are always complicated. The trick is helping kids understand that complicated doesn't mean broken. Is that what you think? That we're not broken? Emma considered the question carefully. I think you're a family that's figuring out a new shape. That's different from being broken. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the city lights twinkling beyond the study windows. "Emma," Alex said eventually, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you really take this job? And don't say it was the salary." Emma smiled. "Honestly? Because when you described this situation, the wedding, the pressure, Sophia's anxiety, it reminded me of something." "What?" When I was 10, my parents got divorced. It was messy and public. My dad was a local politician, so the whole thing ended up in the newspapers. I spent months feeling like everyone was watching me, waiting to see if I'd fall apart or do something embarrassing that would reflect badly on my family. Alex set down his tea. "That sounds awful." It was. But my grandmother, my dad's mother, did something that changed everything. She took me shopping for a special dress, taught me how to do my hair nicely, and then took me to every fancy event she could find for 2 months straight. Museum openings, charity luncheons, art gallery receptions. Why? Nay, she said that if people were going to be watching me anyway, I might as well give them something interesting to watch. She taught me that I could choose to be confident instead of scared, curious instead of defensive. Emma paused. By the time I had to attend some family function where I knew people would be whispering about my parents' divorce, I felt ready for it. Not because I was pretending everything was fine, but because I knew I could handle whatever came my way. Alex felt something tight in his chest begin to loosen. "You want to do that for Sophia." "I want to do that for both of you," Emma corrected. "Because frankly, Mr. Whitmore, you seem just as nervous about this wedding as she is." Alex laughed, surprised by his own honesty. "Terrified, actually. Then we'll practice together, all 3 of us." As Emma left the study, Alex found himself looking forward to tomorrow in a way he hadn't in months. For the first time since receiving Victoria's wedding invitation, he wasn't dreading the event itself. He was curious about what Emma Chen had planned. The restaurant Emma chose for their first practice run was not what Alex had expected. Instead of one of Manhattan's predictably elegant establishments, she'd made reservations at Gramercy Tavern, upscale enough to require proper manners, but warm and inviting rather than intimidatingly formal. "The key," Emma explained as they walked through the amber-lit dining room, "is to pick places where Sophia can feel sophisticated without feeling like she's performing in a museum." Sophia, wearing a navy dress with small pearl buttons that Emma had helped her choose, walked between them with careful steps. She'd been practicing what Emma called restaurant posture all afternoon. Shoulders back, head up, but relaxed rather than rigid. "Remember," Emma whispered as the hostess led them to their table, "confident people ask questions. They're interested in other people, not worried about being judged." Alex found himself adjusting his own posture. When had he stopped noticing the difference between confidence and performance? Their server, a young man with kind eyes and an easy smile, approached their table. "Good evening, folks. Welcome to Gramercy Tavern." "Good evening," Sophia said carefully, making eye contact just as Emma had taught her. "This is our first time here. What's your favorite thing on the menu?" The server's face lit up. "Oh, that's a great question. Are you celebrating something special tonight?" Sophia glanced at Emma, who nodded encouragingly. "We're practicing for my mum's wedding. I'm the flower girl, and I want to make sure I know how to act at fancy dinners." "Well, that's very responsible of you," the server said seriously. "In that case, I should probably recommend our roasted chicken. It's delicious, and it's not too messy to eat, always important at weddings." Alex watched the exchange with growing amazement. In just 4 days, Emma had somehow transformed Sophia from a sullen, anxious child into someone who could charm a stranger without even trying. More remarkably, Sophia seemed to be genuinely enjoying herself. "What about wine?" Sophia asked suddenly, then caught herself. "I mean, I can't have wine, but should I know about it for the wedding?" Emma and Alex exchanged glances. "What do you think you should know?" Emma asked. Well, there will probably be toasts, right? And people will be holding glasses and looking serious. Should I hold my water glass when they do? Alex felt a pang of guilt. He'd been so focused on his own anxiety about the wedding that he hadn't considered the dozens of small social situations Sophia would need to navigate. "That's very thoughtful," he said. "Yes, you can raise your water glass during toasts. And if you're not sure what to do, just watch what the other kids are doing. But what if I'm the only kid there?" Emma leaned forward conspiratorially. "Then you watch your dad. He's been to lots of fancy events. He'll know what to do." Sophia turned to Alex with new interest. "You have? What kind of events?" Alex found himself describing some of the charity galas and business dinners he attended regularly, but as he talked, he realized he was telling stories he'd never shared before. Not about the deals he'd made or the important people he'd met, but about the small human moments that had made those events memorable. The time a senator's wife had complimented his cufflinks, and they'd ended up talking about her grandmother's jewelry collection for 20 minutes. The charity auction, where he'd accidentally bid on a weekend at a dude ranch and had to gracefully figure out what to do with it. "You donated the weekend to a children's hospital," Emma said when he finished that story. "Let them auction it off for their fundraiser." Alex paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. "How did you know that?" Emma's cheeks flushed slightly. "Lucky guess." But Sophia was already moving on to the next story, asking about the time Alex had mentioned getting trapped in an elevator with a famous chef during a restaurant opening. As he told the story, embellishing the details in a way that made Sophia giggle, Alex found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in months. "Your turn, Emma," Sophia said when Alex finished. "What's the fanciest event you've ever been to?" Emma was quiet for a moment, twirling pasta around her fork with careful precision. "Probably a museum gala in Boston. The family I worked for there had connections to the Museum of Fine Arts, and they needed an extra pair of hands to help with their children during the event." "What was it like?" "Beautiful. A little overwhelming. Lots of people in expensive clothes talking about art and making donations." Emma smiled. "But the children I was watching taught me something important that night." "What?" "They weren't impressed by any of it. The fancy dresses, the important names, the expensive champagne, none of that mattered to them. They were fascinated by the actual art, asking questions about the paintings that half the adults in the room had never thought to ask." Alex found himself studying Emma's face as she talked. There was something in her expression, a distance almost, that suggested she was remembering more than she was saying. "Emma," Sophia said suddenly, "are you rich?" "Sophia," Alex started, but Emma held up a hand. "It's okay, that's a fair question." Emma looked directly at Sophia. "What makes you ask that? You know about fancy restaurants and museums and stuff. And you talk about art like you really understand it, not like you're just pretending." Emma smiled. "I'm not rich, sweetheart, but I've been lucky enough to work for families who expose me to a lot of different experiences. When you pay attention, you learn things." Alex sensed there was more to that story, but something in Emma's tone suggested it wasn't the time to push. After dinner, as they walked through Union Square, Sophia skipped ahead of them, clearly energized by her successful navigation of the restaurant experience. "She did well tonight," Alex said. "She did. But more importantly, she had fun. That's what we want her to remember about fancy situations, that they can be enjoyable, not just something to endure." They paused at a crosswalk, watching Sophia examine the window display of a bookstore with intense concentration. "Emma," Alex said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Earlier, when you knew about the Dude Ranch weekend, how did you really know that?" Emma was quiet for so long that Alex wondered if she'd heard him. Finally she said, "I read a lot of business journals. Your donation to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia was mentioned in a Forbes article about charitable giving among young CEOs. It was plausible. Alex's philanthropy was occasionally covered in the business press. But something about Emma's tone suggested she was choosing her words very carefully. "You read Forbes?" I read everything. Occupational hazard of working with smart kids. They ask questions about everything, so you learn to stay informed. The light changed, and they started across the street. Alex found himself walking more slowly, reluctant to end the evening. "What's next?" he asked. "For Sophia's practice, I mean." Emma smiled. "I was thinking we could try something a little more challenging. There's a gallery opening tomorrow night in Soho. Nothing too intimidating, but it'll give Sophia a chance to practice making conversation with strangers in a more social setting." "A gallery opening. That seems perfect," Emma finished. "Art gives people something to talk about besides themselves. It takes the pressure off. And if Sophia gets overwhelmed, we can always step outside or find a quiet corner." Alex nodded, then found himself asking, "Will you need me to arrange anything? Guest list, security clearance, that sort of thing?" Emma gave him a curious look. "It's a small gallery in Soho, not the Met Gala. We just show up." "Right, of course." Alex felt foolish. When had he become so accustomed to orchestrated events that he'd forgotten about simply showing up places? The next evening, Alex found himself standing in front of his closet, uncertain about what to wear to a small gallery opening in Soho. His usual uniform of expensive suits seemed too formal, but he owned precious little that qualified as smart casual. Emma appeared in his doorway, wearing dark jeans, ankle boots, and a silk blouse that somehow managed to look both effortless and elegant. "Everything okay?" she asked. "I'm not sure what to wear." Emma studied his closet with the same careful attention she'd given to planning Sophia's restaurant etiquette. "Do you own any jeans?" Yes, somewhere." She found them on a high shelf, still in their department store packaging. "When did you buy these?" 2 years ago, maybe 3. I thought I might need them for something." Emma shook her head, amused. "Put them on, with the navy sweater and the brown leather jacket." 20 minutes later, Alex barely recognized himself in the mirror. He looked younger, more relaxed, more like the person he'd been before his life became a series of scheduled appointments and strategic decisions. "Much better," Emma said approvingly. Then, more quietly, "You look like someone who might actually enjoy an art gallery." The gallery was tucked into a narrow building between a vintage clothing store and a coffee shop that smelled like cardamom and possibility. The opening was already in full swing when they arrived. Clusters of people holding wine glasses, talking animatedly in front of large, colorful paintings. Sophia, wearing a simple dress and the same ankle boots as Emma, looked around with wide eyes. "There are so many people." "But look," Emma said, guiding Sophia's attention to a nearby group. "See how they're all looking at that painting? They're talking about what they see, what they think it means. Everyone has a different opinion, and that's what makes it interesting." "What do you see?" Sophia asked, approaching a large abstract piece covered in swirls of blue and gold. Alex found himself actually looking at the painting instead of scanning the room for important people or business opportunities. "It reminds me of water, maybe, or wind." "I see a storm," Sophia said thoughtfully, "but not a scary storm, like the kind that clears the air." "Excellent observation," said a voice behind them. They turned to find a woman in her 60s, silver hair pulled back in a sleek bun, smiling at Sophia. "Are you an artist yourself?" "Not really," Sophia said, "but I like to draw." "Do you know the artist who made this?" "I do. Would you like to meet her?" Alex tensed slightly. This wasn't part of their practice plan. But Emma caught his eye and shook her head almost imperceptibly. Let Sophia navigate this herself. The woman, who introduced herself as the gallery owner, led Sophia across the room to meet the artist, a young woman with paint-stained fingers and an infectious laugh. Alex and Emma followed at a distance, close enough to intervene if necessary, but far enough to let Sophia handle the interaction herself. "She's doing beautifully," Emma murmured. Alex watched his daughter ask the artist about her process, about where she got her ideas, about whether it was hard to let other people buy paintings you'd created. Sophia's questions were thoughtful, genuine, and the artist was clearly charmed. "How did you know she'd be good at this?" Alex asked. "She's naturally curious, and she's not afraid to admit when she doesn't know something. Those are the two most important social skills anyone can have." Alex found himself watching Emma as much as Sophia. She moved through the gallery with easy confidence, stopping to examine paintings with genuine interest, making casual conversation with other visitors. She wasn't performing or networking. She was simply present, engaged with the art and the people around her. "You've done this before," he said when she rejoined him in front of a particularly striking landscape. "Gallery openings?" "A few times." "You're comfortable here, more comfortable than you were at the restaurant last night." Emma glanced at him. "What makes you say that?" "Last night, you were focused on Sophia, making sure she felt confident and prepared. Tonight, you're enjoying yourself." Emma considered this. "I love art. I always have. There's something about being surrounded by creativity, by people who are passionate about making beautiful things." She trailed off, but Alex found himself filling in the silence. "It feels more real than most social situations." "Exactly." Emma looked surprised. "You feel it too." Alex looked around the gallery, at the vibrant paintings, at the animated conversations, at Sophia chatting easily with strangers about color and composition. I'd forgotten that social events could be about connection instead of just obligation. "When was the last time you went to something like this? Not a business function or a charity obligation, just an event you chose because you thought you might enjoy it." Alex tried to remember. "College, maybe? There was an art history course I took as an elective. The professor used to organize trips to galleries and museums." "What did you study? Before business school, I mean." "Literature, actually, with a minor in art history." Emma stared at him. "Literature?" "I wanted to be a writer," Alex said, the words feeling strange in his mouth. He hadn't said that out loud in years. "Novels, specifically. I had this idea that I could write the great American business novel, expose all the corruption and moral ambiguity of corporate culture." "What happened?" "Reality, student loans, practical concerns, family pressure." Alex shrugged. "My father convinced me that business school was a more sensible path, said I could always write as a hobby." "Do you write as a hobby?" Alex's laugh was rueful. "When would I find the time?" Emma was quiet for a moment, then said, "You know, there's something I should probably tell you." Before she could continue, Sophia appeared at Alex's elbow, practically vibrating with excitement. "Dad, guess what? The artist, her name is Maria. She said I have a really good eye for color, and she invited us to her studio next week if we want to see how she makes her paintings." Alex smiled at his daughter's enthusiasm. "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart." "Can we go, Emma, please?" If your father thinks it's a good idea." Alex found himself nodding before he'd fully considered the implications. A week ago, he would have worried about his schedule, about whether it was appropriate, about what message it might send. Now he was thinking about how excited Sophia looked, how natural this felt. "We'll make it work," he said. As they left the gallery, walking slowly through the Soho evening, Alex felt something he'd almost forgotten: anticipation. Not the strategic anticipation of a business deal or the anxious anticipation of a social obligation, but the simple pleasure of looking forward to something new. "That was perfect," Sophia announced, skipping between Alex and Emma. "I can't wait to tell Mum about the paintings. Do you think she'll want to hear about the artist?" Alex and Emma exchanged glances. Victoria's interest in art was limited to pieces that complemented her interior design choices. "I think she'll want to hear that you had a good time," Emma said diplomatically, "and that you're feeling more confident about social events." "I am," Sophia said seriously. "Emma, what's our next practice?" "Well, I thought we might try something a little more formal. Maybe a charity luncheon or a museum reception, something that's closer to what the wedding will actually be like." Alex found himself curious about Emma's connections. How did a nanny get invitations to charity luncheons and museum receptions? "Emma," he said as they waited for a taxi. "What you were going to tell me earlier—" "It can wait," Emma said quickly, glancing at Sophia. "Let's focus on getting our flower girl ready for her big day." But as they rode back to the Upper East Side, Alex found himself studying Emma's reflection in the taxi window. There were layers to her that he was only beginning to glimpse, depths that seemed at odds with her role as a temporary employee. He was beginning to suspect that Emma Chen was not quite who she appeared to be. The question was, did he care? Looking at Sophia, who was chattering happily about color theory and artistic process, looking at Emma, who was listening to his daughter with genuine interest and affection, Alex realized that he didn't care about Emma's secrets. He cared about Emma. The invitation arrived on thick cardstock with gold embossing. The Metropolitan Children's Hospital Annual Gala. Alex stared at it over his morning coffee, wondering how Emma had managed to secure 3 tickets to one of the city's most exclusive charity events. "Perfect timing," Emma said, appearing in the kitchen doorway with Sophia in tow. "This will be ideal practice for the wedding. Black tie, seated dinner, silent auction, all the formal elements Sophia needs to experience." "How exactly did you get these tickets?" Alex asked, holding up the invitation. Emma's cheeks flushed slightly. "I have some connections from my previous job in Boston." Sophia, who was arranging berries on her pancakes in careful patterns, looked up. "Do I need a fancy dress?" "We'll find you something perfect," Emma assured her. "Something that makes you feel confident and comfortable." Alex found himself more curious about Emma's connections than about Sophia's dress requirements. The Metropolitan Children's Hospital Gala was notoriously difficult to get into. Tickets started at $500 per person and usually sold out within hours to New York's social elite. That afternoon, Emma took Sophia shopping while Alex attempted to focus on quarterly reports. Instead, he found himself wondering what Emma would wear to the gala, how she would navigate a room full of Manhattan's most influential families, whether she realized that several board members of his own company would likely be in attendance. When they returned, Sophia burst into his study, carrying several shopping bags and wearing an expression of pure excitement. "Dad, look!" She pulled a navy blue dress from the first bag. Simple, elegant, age-appropriate. "Emma says it makes me look sophisticated, but not like I'm trying too hard. It's beautiful, sweetheart. And look at Emma's dress." Emma shot Sophia a warning look, but it was too late. Sophia had already pulled a stunning emerald green gown from the second bag. Silk, perfectly cut, definitely not purchased on a nanny's salary. "It's lovely," Alex said carefully, noting Emma's discomfort. "Emma tried to buy something less expensive," Sophia continued, oblivious to the tension. "But the saleswoman said this color was perfect for her skin tone, and she'd be crazy not to get it." "Sophia," Emma said gently, "why don't you go practice your posture in the mirror? Remember what we talked about, shoulders back, chin up, but relaxed." After Sophia left, Alex continued to study the dress. "Emma, this is a designer gown. I know it's extravagant. It's not about the money. It's about the fact that you knew exactly what to buy, where to shop, how to navigate Bergdorf's like you belonged there." Alex set down his pen. "Who are you, really?" Emma sank into the chair across from his desk. For a long moment she was quiet. Then she said, "My full name is Emma Chen Morrison." Alex felt something click into place. "Morrison, as in Morrison Holdings. As in my grandfather built a media empire, my father expanded it into tech and real estate, and I was supposed to inherit a significant portion of it." Emma's voice was carefully neutral. "I was also supposed to marry the son of one of my father's business partners, move to San Francisco, and produce the next generation of Morrison heirs." Alex stared at her. Morrison Holdings was worth billions. Emma Chen Morrison wasn't just wealthy, she was Manhattan royalty. But you became a nanny instead. "I became a nanny because I wanted to understand what it felt like to earn my own living, to be valued for what I could do rather than who my family was." Emma met his eyes. "And because I was running away from a life that felt like a very expensive prison. The family in Boston were friends of my family who agreed to let me work for them under my mother's maiden name. They thought it was a phase I'd grow out of. Emma smiled ruefully. My father is still convinced I'll come to my senses and return to take my place in the company. Alex felt as though he was seeing Emma clearly for the first time, and also realizing how much he still didn't know. Why are you telling me this now? Because tomorrow night there's a good chance we'll run into people who know me as Emma Morrison, not Emma Chen. And because, she hesitated, because you asked who I really was, and you deserved an honest answer. Is Emma Chen who you really are, or is Emma Morrison? Emma considered the question seriously. 6 months ago, I would have said Emma Chen. She felt more real to me, more authentic. But now, she looked toward the hallway where Sophia's voice could be heard practicing conversation starters with her reflection. Now I think maybe I'm both. The question is whether that's going to be a problem. Alex found himself standing, moving around the desk to sit in the chair next to Emma's, rather than behind the barrier of mahogany and authority. The only problem, he said quietly, is that I've spent the last week falling for my daughter's nanny, and now I'm discovering she's one of the most eligible women in New York. Emma's breath caught. Alex, I know it's complicated. I know the timing is terrible, and I know you're probably going back to your real life after the wedding. Alex reached for her hand, relieved when she didn't pull away. But I needed you to know that this, whatever this is between us, it's not about your connections or your family's money. It's about the way you make Sophia laugh, and the way you've reminded me who I used to be, and the way you look at art like it might save your soul. Emma's eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. What if my real life is here? What if I don't want to go back? Before Alex could answer, Sophia's voice echoed down the hallway. Emma! Dad! Come see how good I am at walking in fancy shoes. They broke apart, the moment suspended between them like a held breath. We should, Emma started. Talk about this later, Alex finished. After the gala. But as they walked towards Sophia's excited chatter, Alex found himself wondering if Emma's revelation changed everything, or nothing at all. The next evening, as Alex adjusted his bow tie in the mirror, he caught sight of Emma in the hallway outside his bedroom. The emerald dress transformed her into someone who belonged in magazine spreads, someone who could command attention in any room she entered. You look beautiful, he said. Thank you. Emma smoothed her skirt nervously. Alex, about tonight. We'll figure it out as we go, he said. Together. Sophia appeared between them, resplendent in her navy dress and low heels, carrying herself with a poise that would have been unimaginable 2 weeks ago. Are we ready for my final exam? She asked with a grin. Alex looked at his daughter, then at Emma, and felt something settle into place in his chest. Whatever complications the evening might bring, whatever revelations or challenges awaited them, they would face them as a team. We're ready, he said. The Metropolitan Children's Hospital Gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, the same venue where Victoria's wedding would take place in 1 week. As they entered the glittering space, Alex felt Emma tense beside him. You okay? He murmured. Just remembering why I left this world behind, she said softly. But watching Sophia navigate the cocktail hour with growing confidence, introducing herself to strangers, asking thoughtful questions about the hospital's work, even successfully bidding on a small item in the silent auction, Alex saw Emma's expression soften. She's going to be fine at the wedding, Emma said, pride evident in her voice. Thanks to you. They were standing near the auction tables when Alex heard his name called from across the room. He turned to see Charles Huntington III approaching, Victoria on his arm. Alexander, Charles said with a kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. What a pleasant surprise. Alex felt Emma go very still beside him. Alexander, Charles said with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. What a pleasant surprise. Alex felt Emma go very still beside him. Victoria's gaze moved from Alex to Emma, and her expression shifted from polite surprise to something sharper. Charles, Victoria, Alex replied evenly. Congratulations on the engagement. Thank you. Victoria's eyes lingered on Emma's emerald dress, taking in every expensive detail. And who is your lovely companion? Before Alex could respond, Emma stepped forward with the kind of confidence that could only come from years of elite social training. Emma Morrison, she said, extending her hand to Charles first, a subtle but unmistakable power move that didn't go unnoticed. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding. Charles's handshake lingered a fraction too long. Morrison, as in Morrison Holdings. Among other things, Emma replied smoothly. Alex watched Victoria's face cycle through several emotions: surprise, calculation, and something that looked distinctly like jealousy. How fascinating, Victoria said, her voice carrying that particular edge she used when feeling threatened. I had no idea Alex was moving in such elevated circles these days. Emma is Sophia's nanny, Alex said, his tone warning Victoria to be careful. Nanny? Victoria's laugh was bright and sharp. How wonderfully bohemian of you, Miss Morrison. Playing at domestic life must be quite the adventure. Emma's smile never wavered, but Alex caught the slight tightening around her eyes. I've found working with children to be incredibly rewarding. Sophia is remarkable. You must be very proud. Of course I am. Victoria's tone softened when speaking of Sophia, genuine love breaking through her social armor. She's the most important thing in my life. Where is our flower girl? Charles asked, clearly trying to diffuse the growing tension. Right here! Sophia appeared at Alex's elbow, having successfully navigated the silent auction tables with a small ceramic vase. Mom, Charles, look what I won! Victoria's expression transformed as she knelt to Sophia's level. It's beautiful, sweetheart. You look absolutely gorgeous tonight. Emma helped me pick out the dress, Sophia said proudly, and she taught me how to bid on auction items without looking desperate. Charles laughed, the first genuine expression Alex had seen from him all evening. Excellent strategy. Perhaps you could give me some tips. And as Sophia chattered about her auction victory, Alex noticed how naturally Emma stepped back, allowing the family moment while remaining close enough to provide support if needed. It was a perfect balance of professional boundaries and personal care. She's remarkable with Sophia, Victoria said quietly to Alex, her voice free of its earlier edge. I can see the difference in her confidence. Emma has been wonderful, Alex agreed. Victoria studied Emma for a moment, then said, Miss Morrison, might I ask what drew you to this particular career path? It was a loaded question, and everyone knew it. Emma's answer would reveal whether she saw this as a temporary adventure or something more meaningful. I wanted to understand what it felt like to be valued for what I could contribute rather than what I inherited, Emma said simply. Sophia has taught me as much as I've taught her. Before Victoria could respond, an elegant voice cut through their conversation. Emma, darling, there you are. Dai. Alex turned to see a woman in her 70s approaching their group with the kind of presence that made other conversations pause. Silver hair swept into a perfect chignon, wearing pearls that probably cost more than most people's cars. She moved through the crowd as if she owned not just the room, but the entire city. Grandmother, Emma said, and Alex heard both affection and resignation in her voice. Margaret Morrison was a legend in New York society, the kind of woman who could end careers with a raised eyebrow and had been known to make or break mayoral campaigns over dinner parties. She looked at Alex with shrewd, assessing eyes. You must be Alexander Whitmore, she said, extending her hand. I've heard quite a lot about you. All good, I hope, Alex replied, accepting her handshake. From Emma, yes, from my other sources. Margaret's smile was enigmatic. Well, let's just say you've made quite an impression on several fronts. Victoria and Charles exchanged glances. Having Margaret Morrison appear at their social event was like having royalty drop by, flattering but potentially dangerous. Mrs. Morrison, Charles said, what an honor to have you here tonight. The Children's Hospital has always been close to my heart, Margaret replied graciously. Then turning back to Emma, I must say you look radiant, dear. This life suits you. Thank you, grandmother. This must be the famous Sophia. Margaret's expression softened as she looked at the little girl. Your father has told me so much about you. Alex blinked in surprise. When had his daughter met Margaret Morrison? Sophia beamed. Grandmother Margaret, did you see my auction vase? I did indeed. Excellent taste. Margaret winked at Sophia, then addressed the group. I hope you'll excuse us for a moment. I'd like to steal Emma for a brief chat. As Margaret led Emma away, Alex found himself alone with Victoria and Charles. Exactly the scenario he'd hoped to avoid. Well, Victoria said, her voice carefully neutral. That was unexpected. Margaret Morrison is a formidable woman, Charles observed. Her endorsement of your relationship with her granddaughter could be quite advantageous, Alexander. Alex felt his jaw tighten. My relationship with Emma isn't about business advantages. Of course not, Victoria said quickly. But you have to admit the timing is interesting. Just as our wedding approaches, you appear with one of New York's most eligible heiresses. Emma's been working for me for 3 weeks, Victoria. This isn't some elaborate scheme. Working for you, Victoria repeated. As a nanny, do you realize how that sounds? Before Alex could respond, Sophia tugged on his sleeve. Dad, can we go see the dessert table? Emma said they have chocolate fountains. In a moment, sweetheart. But Victoria had overheard. Chocolate fountains? Sophia, you know too much sugar makes you hyperactive. It's a special occasion, Alex said mildly. Charles and I were just discussing Sophia's routine, Victoria continued, her voice taking on that particular tone that meant trouble. We're concerned about the inconsistencies in her care lately. Alex felt his blood run cold. What do you mean, inconsistencies? Gallery openings, late-night restaurants, charity galas, Charles enumerated. These aren't typical activities for an 8-year-old. These aren't typical circumstances, Alex replied, his voice carefully controlled. Sophia needed to feel confident at your wedding. Emma has been helping her prepare, by exposing her to adult social situations, by teaching her social skills and self-confidence. Victoria's expression softened slightly. Alex, I can see that Sophia is more confident, and I'm grateful for that truly. But Charles and I have been talking, and we think perhaps a more stable environment might be better for her long-term. The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Alex felt his hands clench at his sides. Sophia is perfectly stable with me. Of course she is. But children need consistency, predictability. They need to know their caregivers aren't going to disappear when the novelty wears off. Alex was about to respond when Emma and Margaret returned, both women wearing expressions that suggested their conversation had been significant. Everything all right? Emma asked, clearly sensing the tension. We were just discussing Sophia's routine, Victoria said pleasantly. How important consistency is for children from complex family situations. Emma's eyes flashed, and Alex realized she understood exactly what Victoria was implying. Consistency is indeed important, Emma said evenly. Children need to know they're loved unconditionally, that the adults in their lives will support their growth rather than limit it, and that they won't be used as pawns in adult conflicts. The silence that followed was profound. Margaret Morrison smiled approvingly. Well said, dear. Charles cleared his throat. Perhaps we should return to the party. The auction results will be announced soon. As they walked back toward the main ballroom, Margaret fell into step beside Alex. Mr. Whitmore, she said quietly, might I offer you some advice? Of course. My granddaughter left a very comfortable life to work as a nanny. She could have had any man in New York, any career, any lifestyle she wanted. The fact that she chose to care for your daughter, that she's helping you navigate this difficult situation, that tells me everything I need to know about both her feelings and your worth. Alex glanced at Emma, who was walking ahead with Sophia, pointing out architectural details of the plaza's ceiling. Don't let other people's insecurities make you question what you have, Margaret continued, and don't let pride keep you from fighting for it. The auction results were announced. Sophia's ceramic vase was among the winning bids, much to her delight. As the evening wound down, Alex found himself watching Emma navigate the crowd with easy grace, saying goodbye to acquaintances, accepting business cards from people who wanted to stay in touch. She belonged in this world, but she'd chosen to step outside it. For Sophia, for him. Victoria approached as they waited for their coats. "Alex," she said quietly, "I want you to know, I wasn't trying to threaten you earlier. I'm just concerned about Sophia. I know you are. We both want what's best for her." Victoria nodded, then looked at Emma, who was helping Sophia with her coat. "She really cares about Sophia, doesn't she?" "Yes, she does. And you care about her." It wasn't a question. Alex met Victoria's eyes. "Yes." Victoria was quiet for a moment, then sighed. "I suppose I always knew you'd find someone eventually. I didn't expect it to be someone so perfect for us," Alex suggested. Victoria smiled ruefully. "I was going to say intimidating, but yes, I suppose she is perfect for you." As they left the plaza, Sophia skipping between Alex and Emma, chattering about the evening's highlights, Alex felt something settle into place. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and he suspected there would be many, they would face them together. "That went well," Emma said softly as they walked toward their waiting car. "Did it? I felt like we were navigating a minefield." Emma smiled. "Welcome to high society, Alex. Every conversation is a negotiation, every smile has a purpose, and everyone is always performing." "Is that what you were doing tonight? Performing?" Emma stopped walking and turned to face him. "No. Tonight, for the first time in years, I was just being myself. The question is that enough?" Alex looked at this remarkable woman who had turned his life upside down in the best possible way, then at his daughter, who was glowing with confidence and joy. "It's everything," he said. As their car pulled away from the plaza, Alex caught sight of the hotel's wedding preparations already beginning for the following week's events. In 7 days, they would return to this same building for Victoria's wedding. But tonight, heading home with Emma and Sophia, Alex realized he was no longer dreading that event. He was looking forward to it. The phone call came at 7 in the morning, 3 days after the gala. Emma was in the kitchen making coffee when her cell phone rang with the distinctive tone she'd assigned to her father. Ominous and unavoidable. "Emma," Richard Morrison's voice carried across the line with the authority of a man accustomed to being obeyed. "We need to talk." Emma glanced toward the hallway where Alex and Sophia were getting ready for the day. "Good morning to you too, Dad. Don't be flippant. I've been fielding calls since Monday about your performance at the Children's Hospital Gala." "My performance?" "Appearing publicly with Alexander Whitmore, allowing photographers to capture you together, giving the impression that Morrison Holdings is somehow aligned with his interests." Richard's voice grew sharper. "Do you have any idea what this looks like to our board? To the Huntingtons?" Emma closed her eyes. She'd known this conversation was coming. "It looks like I attended a charity event. It looks like you're dating a competitor while working as his domestic help. The optics are disastrous, Emma." "The optics of what exactly? Me having a personal life?" "The optics of a Morrison heiress playing nanny to advance some romantic agenda. People are talking, Emma. They're questioning your judgment, your motives, your fitness to eventually take a leadership role in this company." Emma felt anger rise in her chest. "My fitness? I've been doing meaningful work, contributing to a family, using my education and skills to what? Babysit? Emma, you have an MBA from Wharton. You could be running divisions of our company, making decisions that affect thousands of employees, building something that matters." "This matters," Emma said quietly. "A temporary infatuation with a man and his child?" Emma was quiet for so long that Richard finally asked, "Are you still there?" "I'm here. I'm just wondering when you became so certain that love was temporary and business was permanent." "Emma, I have to go, Dad. Sophia has school and I have responsibilities." "Your responsibilities are to this family, to this company, to the legacy your grandfather built." My responsibilities, Emma said carefully, are to the people I care about. I'll talk to you later. She hung up before Richard could respond, then stood in the quiet kitchen, her hands shaking slightly around her coffee mug. Everything okay? Alex appeared in the doorway, already dressed for work, his expression concerned. Fine, just family drama. Alex studied her face. Your father? He's displeased about the gala, about us being seen together publicly. Alex's expression darkened. I see. It's not what you think, isn't it? Your family doesn't approve of you associating with someone beneath your social station. Emma set down her coffee mug harder than necessary. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Before Emma could answer, Sophia bounced into the kitchen, backpack slung over her shoulder, clearly ready for the day. Morning, Emma. Morning, Dad. Are we still going to the museum after school? Maria said she might have time to show us her studio. Of course, Emma said, forcing brightness into her voice. I'm looking forward to it. But Alex was still watching Emma with that careful, distant expression that meant he was retreating into himself. After dropping Sophia at school, they rode back to the apartment in tense silence. Finally, Alex said, Maybe your father has a point. Excuse me? About the optics. About what this looks like. Alex stared out the window at the familiar streets of the Upper East Side. I've been selfish, Emma. I've been thinking about what I want, what Sophia needs, without considering what this situation might cost you. Emma felt something cold settle in her stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe you should go back to your real life before this gets more complicated. My real life. Emma's voice was dangerously quiet. And what exactly do you think my real life is, Alex? Board meetings and charity galas, and marrying someone your father approves of. Building an empire, making decisions that matter on a global scale. Alex's voice was carefully neutral. Not wasting your talents on a man who can't even protect you from his ex-wife's passive-aggressive comments. Emma stared at him. Is that really what you think? That I'm wasting my talents? I think you're brilliant and capable, and you deserve better than hiding from your family's expectations. I'm not hiding from anything. I'm choosing something different. For now. But what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize that playing house with me and Sophia isn't enough to sustain you long-term? Emma felt as though he'd slapped her. Playing house? Alex's jaw tightened. You know what I mean. No. I don't think I do. Why don't you explain it to me? Emma, no, please. Explain to me how caring about you and Sophia, how building something real and meaningful, how choosing love over obligation is just playing house. Alex was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was tired. Because that's what people like me do with people like you. We play house until reality sets in. Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but her voice remained steady. People like me? Rich people. People with options. People who can afford to experiment with different lives because they always have something to fall back on. And people like you. People who work for what they have. People who don't get second chances if they make the wrong choice. Emma was quiet for so long that Alex finally looked at her. Her expression was carefully controlled, but he could see the hurt in her eyes. I see, she said finally. So despite everything we've shared, everything I've told you about why I left my family's world, you still think I'm just slumming it with you and Sophia until I get bored. That's exactly what you think. Emma's voice was getting quieter, which Alex had learned was more dangerous than if she'd been shouting. You think I'm incapable of making real choices about my own life. You think I'm so privileged and sheltered that I can't recognize genuine feelings when I have them. Emma, that's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Alex? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're doing exactly what my father does, deciding what's best for me without bothering to ask what I actually want. Alex felt the conversation spiraling away from him, but he couldn't seem to stop it. I'm trying to be realistic. About what? About the fact that your family has billions of dollars and mine has me. About the fact that you could have any life you want, and I'm asking you to limit yourself to mine. Emma unbuckled her seatbelt and turned to face him fully. Do you want to know what I want, Alex? Emma, I want to wake up every morning knowing that the work I do matters to real people. I want to help Sophia grow into a confident, kind, intelligent woman. I want to build something with someone who sees me as a partner, not a trophy or a burden or a temporary diversion. Her voice cracked slightly. And I thought I'd found that with you. You have I? Because right now it sounds like you're so busy protecting yourself from being hurt that you're willing to throw away something real rather than risk believing in it. They'd reached the apartment building. Alex put the car in park and turned off the engine, but neither of them moved to get out. What if you're wrong? Alex asked quietly. What if 6 months from now you realize this isn't enough? What if you miss your old life, your family's approval, the kind of future you were born to have? Emma was quiet for a moment, then said, what if you're wrong? What if 6 months from now we're happy together and Sophia is thriving, and you've thrown it all away because you were too scared to believe that someone could choose you not despite your limitations, but because of your strengths? Alex stared at his hands on the steering wheel. I don't know how to do this, Emma. I don't know how to be with someone who doesn't need me. Who says I don't need you? You could have anything, anyone. I don't want anything or anyone. I want you. I want Sophia. I want the life we're building together. Emma's voice was fierce now. But I can't want it enough for both of us, Alex. You have to decide if you're brave enough to let yourself be loved. That evening, after a tense afternoon, where they barely spoke except when Sophia was around, Emma began packing her bags. She moved quietly, methodically, folding clothes with the same careful attention she brought to everything else. Sophia appeared in the doorway of Emma's room, her face stricken. Why are you packing? Emma's hands stilled on the sweater she was folding. I think it might be time for me to move on, sweetheart. Move on where? Back to my family, back to my old life. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. But what about the wedding? What about me? Emma knelt down to Sophia's level. You're going to be perfect at the wedding. You don't need me anymore. You're confident and capable and wonderful. But I need you, Sophia said, her voice breaking. You're not like the other nannies. You don't treat me like I'm a problem to solve or a job to get through. You treat me like family. Emma felt her own eyes fill with tears. You are family to me, Sophia. You always will be. Then why are you leaving? Emma struggled to find words that would make sense to an 8-year-old. Sometimes adults make things complicated. Sometimes they let fear make decisions instead of love. Is Dad scared? I think your dad is trying to protect all of us from getting hurt. Sophia considered this with the seriousness that came naturally to her. But Emma, you can't protect people from being hurt by leaving them. That just hurts them in a different way. From the mouths of babes, Emma thought. You're very wise, Sophia. So you'll stay? Emma looked at this remarkable little girl who had become so precious to her, then at the suitcase half full of clothes, then toward the hallway where Alex was probably sitting in his study, convincing himself he was doing the noble thing. I'll stay until after the wedding, she said finally, but then we'll have to see. It wasn't the answer Sophia wanted, but it was the only honest one Emma could give, because as much as she loved Alex, as much as she believed in what they could build together, she couldn't force him to believe in it too. Some things, she was learning, required a leap of faith. The question was whether Alex would be brave enough to jump. The Plaza Hotel had been transformed into a fairy tale. White roses and peonies cascaded from every surface. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across silk-draped walls, and the scent of gardenias filled the air. It was, Alex had to admit, exactly the kind of wedding Victoria had always dreamed of. Elegant, expensive, and utterly perfect. Emma stood in the bridal suite, putting the finishing touches on Sophia's hair. The little girl looked like a princess in her ivory silk dress, a crown of baby's breath nestled in her dark curls. but her eyes kept darting nervously toward the door. "Mum's been in there with the photographer for an hour," Sophia said, gesturing toward the adjoining room where Victoria was having her final portraits taken. "What if I mess up? What if I trip or drop the flowers or—" "Hey," Emma said softly, kneeling to Sophia's eye level. "Remember what we practiced. Walk slowly, keep your chin up, and if something goes wrong, just smile and keep going. No one will remember the mistakes. They'll remember how confident and beautiful you looked. Will you be watching? Every second. And so will your dad." Sophia nodded, then impulsively threw her arms around Emma's neck. "I wish you were going to be my real mom, instead of just my nanny." Emma's breath caught. "Sophia, I know that's not how it works," Sophia said quickly. "But if it was, I'd pick you." Before Emma could respond, the door opened and Victoria emerged in her wedding gown, a breathtaking creation of French lace and silk that had probably cost more than most people's cars. She looked stunning, but Emma noticed the tension around her eyes. "How do I look?" Victoria asked, the question directed at Sophia, but her gaze finding Emma's in the mirror. "Like a princess," Sophia breathed. "You look beautiful, Victoria," Emma said sincerely. "Absolutely radiant." Victoria studied Emma for a moment. "Thank you for everything you've done for Sophia. I can see how much she's grown these past few weeks. She's an amazing little girl. You should be very proud." "I am." Victoria paused, then said quietly, "Emma, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you planning to stay? After today, I mean, in New York with Alex and Sophia?" Emma felt Sophia tense beside her. It was the question they'd all been dancing around for days. "I don't know," Emma said honestly. "That depends on a lot of things." Victoria nodded, as if she'd expected that answer. "For what it's worth, I hope you do. Sophia needs consistency, and you've been good for both of them." Before Emma could respond, there was a knock at the door. The wedding coordinator peered in, clipboard in hand. "Ladies, it's time. The ceremony begins in 15 minutes." Emma watched Sophia take a deep breath, transforming before her eyes from a nervous 8-year-old into a poised young lady. All their practice sessions, all the confidence-building exercises, had led to this moment. "You've got this," Emma whispered. Sophia nodded and walked toward the door with perfect posture, ready to fulfill her role as flower girl. Downstairs in the grand ballroom, Alex adjusted his tie for the 3rd time and tried to ignore the churning in his stomach. The past few days had been torture, he and Emma maintaining polite distance while Sophia watched them with increasingly worried eyes. He'd been a fool. He knew that now, but knowing it and fixing it were two different things. "Nervous?" Charles appeared beside him, also adjusting his formal wear. "Not about the ceremony," Alex replied. Charles followed Alex's gaze to where Emma sat in the 3rd row, elegant in a navy dress that made her look like she belonged among Manhattan's elite, which of course she did. "She's quite remarkable," Charles said. "Victoria mentioned that Emma has been instrumental in Sophia's preparation for today." "She has. And after today?" Alex met Charles's eyes. "I'm not sure." "Ah," Charles nodded knowingly. "The curse of successful men. We're excellent at managing businesses, but terrible at managing our hearts." Before Alex could respond, the music began. The ceremony was starting. Alex watched from his seat as the wedding party processed down the aisle. Sophia appeared at the back of the ballroom, looking absolutely perfect as she scattered rose petals with practiced grace. She caught his eye and smiled, a radiant, confident smile that made his chest tighten with pride. Emma had done that. Emma had taken his anxious, acting-out daughter and helped her discover her own strength. When Sophia reached the altar, she took her place beside the other attendants and found Emma in the crowd. The look that passed between them was one of pure love and pride, and Alex felt something break open in his chest. He'd been so worried about protecting himself from future heartbreak that he'd nearly thrown away the best thing that had ever happened to his family. Victoria walked down the aisle on her father's arm, radiant in her fairy tale dress. She looked happy. genuinely happy, and Alex felt the last traces of their shared past settle into peaceful memory. The ceremony was beautiful, traditional, everything a society wedding should be. Alex found himself watching Emma more than the bride and groom, noting how she smiled during the vows, how she dabbed at her eyes during the ring exchange, how she never took her attention off Sophia throughout the entire service. During the reception, Alex barely had a chance to speak to Emma. She stayed close to Sophia, helping her navigate the receiving line, making sure she ate something during cocktail hour, running interference when well-meaning guests got too enthusiastic with their compliments. It wasn't until dinner was served and Sophia was safely seated between Victoria's parents that Alex found Emma on the terrace, taking a quiet moment away from the crowd. "You did it," he said, joining her at the railing overlooking Central Park. "Sophia did it. She was perfect. Because of you. Because of everything you taught her these past few weeks." Emma didn't respond, just continued looking out at the city lights. "Emma," Alex said quietly, "I need to tell you something. If you're going to thank me for my service and wish me well in my future endeavors, please don't. I can't handle polite dismissal right now." Alex moved closer, close enough to see the exhaustion in her eyes, the careful way she was holding herself together. "I was wrong," he said simply. Emma turned to look at him. "About what?" "About everything. About thinking you were playing house, about assuming you'd eventually want something different, about being too scared to believe that someone like you could choose someone like me." "Alex, I've been watching you tonight, watching how you care for Sophia, how you've helped her become this confident, amazing little person. And I realized that you weren't experimenting with a different life. You were building the life you actually wanted." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I love you. Not because you're convenient or temporary or filling a void, but because you're extraordinary and kind, and you make both Sophia and me better than we were without you. And I'm saying that I was an idiot to let fear make decisions for me, and I'm hoping it's not too late to fix that." Emma was quiet for so long that Alex began to panic. Then she said, "Your timing is terrible, you know. I'm wearing waterproof mascara, but I didn't plan for happy tears." Alex felt relief flood through him. Happy tears. "I love you too, Alex. I love Sophia. I love the life we've been building together, and I don't want to go back to my old world. I want to stay and help create a new one." Alex reached for her hands. "Are you sure? Because your father is going to hate this, and there will be complications with your family, and I still don't know how to navigate your social world." Emma silenced him with a kiss, soft, certain, full of promise. When they broke apart, she said, "We'll figure it out together, all of it." Through the terrace doors, they could see the reception in full swing. Sophia was on the dance floor with Victoria and Charles, laughing as Charles attempted some sort of elaborate spin that nearly sent all three of them tumbling. "She looks happy," Emma observed. "She looks complete, like she finally knows where she belongs in all of this." "And where is that?" Alex turned to face Emma fully. "With us, if you'll have us. Permanently." Emma's smile was radiant. "I thought you'd never ask." As they walked back into the reception, Alex felt the weight of the past few months lifting from his shoulders. Victoria caught his eye from across the dance floor and smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile that held no trace of their complicated history. Margaret Morrison appeared beside them as if she'd been waiting for this moment. "Well," she said with satisfaction, "it's about time you two worked that out." "Were we that obvious?" Emma asked. "My dear, you've been looking at each other like lovesick teenagers for weeks. It was becoming quite painful to watch." Alex laughed. "Mrs. Morrison, I should probably formally ask for your blessing." "You should probably formally ask Emma to marry you," Margaret interrupted. "The blessing you already have. Anyone who can make my granddaughter look that happy has my full approval." 6 months later, Alex and Emma stood in the same ballroom at the plaza, but this time as bride and groom. Sophia, now 9 and even more confident, served as maid of honor, having insisted that the traditional flower girl role was too babyish for someone of her advanced age and social experience. Emma wore her grandmother's vintage Chanel, elegant, timeless, perfect. Alex couldn't stop smiling as they exchanged vows, promising to love each other through business mergers and family drama, through charity galas and quiet Sunday mornings, through all the complications that came with blending two very different worlds into one extraordinary life. During their first dance, Sophia cut in, insisting it was only fair that she get to dance with both her parents. "Are you happy?" Emma asked as Sophia spun between them. "Completely," Alex replied. "Are you?" Emma looked around the ballroom, at Margaret Morrison beaming with pride, at Victoria and Charles raising their glasses in a toast, at Sophia giggling as she tried to teach Alex a complicated dance move she'd learned in ballet class. "I'm home," she said simply, and she was. Not because of the elegant setting or the expensive dress or the fairy tale ending, but because she was surrounded by people who loved her for exactly who she was, not who they wanted her to be. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Sophia approached the happy couple with a serious expression. "Mom, Emma," she said. The name had evolved naturally over the past few months. "I have something important to tell you." "What is it, sweetheart?" "I've decided that when I grow up, I want to plan weddings, but only happy ones, where people really love each other." Emma knelt down to Sophia's level. "That sounds like a wonderful career choice. Will you help me learn about business and planning and making people feel special?" "I would be honored to." Alex watched his wife and daughter make plans for the future and felt a contentment he'd never known was possible. Sometimes, he thought, the best things in life came disguised as complications. Sometimes the people who turned your world upside down were exactly the people you needed to make it right. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, love really was enough to overcome any obstacle, even your own fears. As they left the plaza that night, walking out into the New York evening as a family, Alex realized that Emma had been right all along. They hadn't been playing house. They'd been building a home,